Sunday, kind of minding my own business, getting back into swing of things. And I find out that cops was messing with Tyreek Hill. Didn't really know. Somebody just told me that the cops was messing with Tyreek Hill. I ran a search. The next thing I know, Tyreek Hill is on his back, on the ground, handcuffed, and the cops is standing over him. Now, when you start talking about Tyreek Hill and the cops being involved, that's one of those where you walk up and you need to be like, hold on. Somebody take me back to the very beginning, right? Like, there's no telling exactly how we wound up here, except it's his Lamborghini is down the street from the stadium. And now he's face down on the ground, handcuffed. And it didn't pass the smell test, what wound up happening there. Then Calais Campbell, who one of the largest humans in the history of humanness. He shows up because he sees his man's getting messed with by the cops, and he comes in and is trying to get some answers, trying to defuse the situation. He winds up being in handcuffs. And then eventually all parties involved were taken out of their handcuffs, and then they went to the game, and then they played in the game, and then the Dolphins won the game, and Tyreek Hill scored a touchdown. And when Tyreek Hill scored the touchdown, he did a thing where he acted like he was handcuffed, and he had somebody come unhandcuff him, which, I mean, I guess you have to do something, I suppose. Like, I don't know. Look, man, I don't know what to tell that man to do after that situation under those circumstances or whatever it was, right? Like, I don't know what exactly there is to say. There was a couple of interesting things that came out of it. One, Sean, do we have this Tyreek talking before the media after the game, kind of giving his side of what went down with the cops?
Right now, so I've been trying to figure that out too. Man. Right now, I'm still trying to put it all together. So I'm not going to give you a version that I still don't know what happened. You know what I'm saying? But I do want to be able to use this platform to say, like, what if I wasn't Tyreek Hill, bro? Like, worst case scenario, because it's crazy. Like, I want to be a cop one day. I got a state trooper hat, all that, so I got a lot of respect.
Stop right there. Did he just say he want to be a cop?
And he has his state trooper's certification or something.
Hey. He said he got a hat. He said he got a state trooper hat. He got this motherfucker looking like Smokey the Bear, talking about he want to be a cop. And I saw Cocaine Cowboys. I know that back in the day in Miami, it could be very easy for you to be a police officer. But Sean, I'm going to just throw it out there, brother. I don't think Tyreek Hill could pass the background check.
I think Shaq as a cop makes somewhat sense, but Tyreek Hill, I don't see it lining up.
Yeah, I don't. I just don't think. I think that once they start asking some questions, it becomes a little difficult for them. Yeah, okay. So that is what he said. Now we have a clip from Javon Holland, and I always, before we get to Javon's clip, I always say this. I talked to Javon in 2020 when I was doing a story about the united movements of college athletes. The Pac-12 United, all that stuff that was going on where they were trying to unionize in some form or fashion and get what they was looking for. And I can't tell you how impressed I was by this dude when he was 21 years old, or however old he was then. I was kind of blown away by how impressive he was. But anyway, this is what he had to say after the game.
Before the game.
Yeah, that was crazy. I was stretching and I seen on the TV, bro got arrested. And then I seen the clip, cop kicked him or something like that. It was crazy. So that's got to get handled. You know what I'm saying? Excessive force on a black man, that's not uncommon. It's a very common thing in America. So I think that needs to be addressed at a countrywide level. So yeah, I don't think that shit is cool at all. But it's not unnatural or not uncommon for cops to do that type of shit, especially the black man. So that needs to be addressed for sure.
And I appreciated him making that point as directly as he made that point. This is also where you remind everybody kind of the contradiction of, remember Stephen Ross? Stephen Ross was the one that was really trying to get them boys to stop kneeling, their owner. And Stephen Ross is definitely on the Trump team. That's his ball game. But he also runs this this organization called Rise that's supposed to be helping cut down on the racism in sports, And I heard what Holland had to say right there. And it just wanted me to get back up and ask the question, hey, do you remember when we used to care about the police beating people up and killing them? You remember that? Because it used to be like a really big thing. Like it dawned on me. August 9th of this year was the 10th anniversary of Mike Brown being killed in Ferguson, Missouri. So like yesterday is 10 years and 30 days away from that moment. And we've had the Kaepernick situation that went on in between and everything else. But from the way that we are acting about this, because I find that by and large, the way that I've seen the commentary about this in sports media go had a lot more to do with football than anything else. Like it was almost treated in that uncomfortable way that you would treat it when Kobe Bryant would go to court and then come back and score 35, right? Like it became almost like part of the narrative of the sports stuff. But let me tell you something. Calais Campbell, by my estimation, risked his life to go inquire what was going on there. And you know why I say he risked his life to go inquire what was going on there? Because that dude is 6'8" and 300 and something pounds. And my first thought would be when Snuffleupagus gets rolled up, today was going to lay his big ass down. Like that was my number one thought there. That is would be terrifying. That big dude, that's terrified. And he come over there with that voice, hey, what's going on over here? Like I was scared to death. And hearing that something could easily wind up happening to him, because those are what the stakes are. And we had all these discussions about what the stakes were. And we had all this talk for all this time about police violence, generally and specifically against black people. But we had all this talk about this. It is my understanding that the numbers around those things are roughly the same. They're roughly the same. We had George Floyd died 4 years ago, and that incident, which took place around, it was a little, I want to say it was, what was that, May, and then Jacob Blake was in August. But anyway, we had the George Floyd situation in 2020, which was largely, I mean, it was clearly about police brutality, but as many people have documented and discussed in the aftermath, that the concessions that people managed to receive in the midst of all that outrage in 2020, it wasn't about police brutality. It was about things that happened and went down at your middle class office. You know? So I get back to the question, do we still care about the police roughing people up? And if we do still care about police roughing people up, like what are we supposed to do at this point? Because what seemed to happen was people just kind of ran out of energy. A lot of people ran out of energy, and this big one that you can't lose sight of, a lot of the more visible people at the front of this came into a lot of money. There's no way around that. But I really stopped, like as this happened, and it made me stop and think back to 10 years ago, what a major thing something like this would have been, and how the sports media at that time was very well equipped to have people get on television and get on everything else and talk about what went on. And we were talking about it in these sorts of macro levels. Now, I think a few things happened. One, I think especially after COVID, people's capacity for outrage and their energy for it is a lot lower, and they don't really have it in them to dial it up and be charged up, at least not about things that matter. You can definitely get charged up about the bullshit topic du jour on the internet. I definitely see that people have the energy to do that one. I don't think they have the energy really to get invested in the things that like really matter anymore. But it was hard to ignore the difference in the way that we would treat such a thing. And this, again, this is a Hall of Fame football player being stopped on the way to a game. Maybe it'd be treated differently and we'd look at it differently if it had been something that stopped him from actually being able to compete. I'm not sure. Maybe we'd go about it a little bit different if the person getting hemmed up by the cops was a little bit more of a sympathetic figure. I think that all those things maybe go into it. But I think it is hard to look at this and not stop and look back and be like, we kind of gave up. We did. Even with the Kaepernick discussion, after a point, the Kaepernick discussion stopped being about police brutality and became about Colin getting his job back, which really wasn't the point ever in this, right? So I'm not saying this with but so much judgment, because I'm not out here talking about the cops and what they're doing in the ways that I did at that time either, right? I feel like I kind of read the room and realized that I wasn't going to be heard anymore, that the capacity to do it was gone. So I could understand lots of reasons that lots of people would have dialed it back if they so decided. But I think we need to really get engaged in a certain measure of introspection about a lot of this, man. Like what it is that we care about, what it is that we don't care about, and how we just kind of stopped caring about this. How somehow this stopped being a thing that was worth our collective time and energy. Because it's all still going down. They still messing with us. They still jamming us up. They still doing all of the things. We're just not as mad about it anymore. What's up with that? The NFL is back, which means you can turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite teams only on Prize Picks. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on a couple of players' stats and projections, and you're locked in. So make sure you go to prizepicks.com/Bomani and use code Bomani for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/Bomani. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.